पंजाबी वेख रहे सारे दर्शकों का निघा स्वागत। मैं तुहाडी अपनी मेज़बान अमृत भट्टी। दोस्तों, साडा बहुत दिल करदा है कि जिन्ने भी साडे कंट्री दे नेता ने, जिन्ने भी साडे पोलीटिकल लीडर्स हुंदे ने, असी उन्हां दे बारे जाणीए, असी उन्हां दे विजन नूं पछाणीए, असी उन्हां दी सोच नूं समझीए, असी समझीए कि जे ओह सानूं लीड कर रहे ने तां ओह सोचदे की ने, ਇਹ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਣ ਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਸੱਚੀ ਮੁੱਚੀ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ, ਸਾਡੀ ਰੋਜ਼ਮर्रा ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਕਨੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਸਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਚਲਾਉਣਾ ਉਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲਣਾ। ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਲੀਡਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤਾਂ ਡੁਰਹੈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਓਨਟੇਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਨਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਨੇ। ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਸ ਨਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਲੀਡਰ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ एरिन ਮਾਈਕਲ ਓਚੋਲੇ। ਜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਲੋਂਗ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਜੇ ਸਹੀ ਮਾਇਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਜਾਏ ਤਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਤੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਦੋ ਹੀ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਲੀਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ। ਮਿਸਟਰ ਟੋਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਡੁਰਹੈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2012 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ MP ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਦੇਰ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੱਕ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ। 2015 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਵੈਟਰਨ ਅਫੇਅਰਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ। ਪਬਲਿਕ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਤਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਲੋਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ 2017 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਟੋਲੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਰੇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲਿਆ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸਟੀਫਨ ਹਾਰਪਰ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਲੇਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਉਸ ਰੇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਿਰਕਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਇਹ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਆਏ ਸੀ। ਔਰ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ 2017 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਟੋਲੇ ਫੋਰਨ ਅਫੇਅਰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਓਪੋਜ਼ਿਟ ਕ੍ਰਿਟਿਕ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੈਂਪੇਨਸ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਹਰ ਰੋਜ਼ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਪੈਂਡੈਮਿਕ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਮਿਸਟਰ ਟੋਲੇ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ।
Thank you very much.
Yeah, how are you and how's the weather in Ontario?
Well, it's been hot lately, very, very hot. So like many families, we're lucky to have a pool. So my children are in the pool and I'm campaigning online for the leadership of the Conservative Party.
That's good. That's good. Mr. Tule, first of all, my question is the first question for you. What brings you to politics?
Well, the first thing that brought me to politics was when I was in the military, serving Canada in the military. My father left General Motors, where he worked, and became a provincial politician for Mike Harris in Ontario. And I saw how he helped our community, he helped our province, and it always led me to think, I think public service is admirable. And I said, one day I'm going to run after my military time and after I became a lawyer. So in 2012, I ran for office and I've been elected 3 times in the Toronto area.
That is perfect. That is very good. So now the next question for you, Erin. You started your campaign as an underdog. And now you have an endorsement for more elective conservative, including Alberta's Premier, Mr. Jason Kenney. Why the Conservative Party is like leadership so important for you?
It's important because our country has to get back on track. We have $343 billion in debt that Mr. Trudeau spent in 5 months. Some of that was needed with the pandemic, but a lot of it we're seeing already is scandal, where Mr. Trudeau was giving tens of millions of dollars to his friends with no debate in the House of Commons. The Trudeau government was slow to close our borders, slow to help small businesses who are failing across the country. So we have to win. And I'm a real conservative. I'm the only one in this race that has a seat in the House of Commons and can win the election in the fall. So I will be the leader in September, holding the Trudeau government to account. And that is why I've gone from the underdog to leading this race. But I need all Conservatives to mark me as number one on their ballot.
Very right. So now my next question is, when the public, they're looking for the leaders, they have a lot of questions in their mind. Now, there are some Conservative Party, like Erin, give me 5 points first of all. What are those 5 points? Then people should vote for you. So, because you are in the leadership race, how do you think and how do you feel that you are stronger than others?
Well, I'll give you 5 points. I have the most experience. I was in the military for 12 years. I worked as a lawyer in the private sector, including for one of the biggest companies in the world, Procter & Gamble. And I also was Stephen Harper's last cabinet minister, and I turned around a very difficult file. So I've got the most experience. I've got a seat in the House of Commons now. We need to win more seats in Ontario. I win in the Toronto area, and I will win more seats. I've got more support from Conservatives across the country elected than anyone else, including Premier Jason Kenney, including the Deputy Premier in Ontario, Christine Elliott. I've also got a plan to save small business. We see small businesses across the country, family-owned businesses failing because Trudeau didn't get them rent assistance. Some of them didn't qualify for business loans. So I have a plan to fix that. And we need to restore Canada's reputation around the world. We've seen how Justin Trudeau lost his vote at the United Nations, embarrassed Canada with his state visit to India, has soured relations with the United States, with Australia, Japan. We need to make sure Canada's respected on the world stage again. We're safe at home, and we're a prosperous country. And I have a plan to do those 3 things.
Perfect. That's very good. And now there are some Conservative Party leadership candidates are not MPs. So how would that work?
That's a great question. Only myself and Derek Sloan are sitting members of Parliament. Mr. McKay and Ms. Lewis are not members of Parliament. So they won't be in the House of Commons for at least 6 to 12 months. And if Trudeau sees the Conservatives don't have a leader, he could call that election early and we would lose. Jagmeet Singh was not in the House for over a year, and the NDP lost half their seats in the next election. So I'm in the House. I win in the Toronto area where there's a lot of seats. I'm a true blue Conservative, a real Conservative, and I'm going to win the next election, but I need support from Conservative Party members as their first choice in order to beat Trudeau.
Perfect. So now my next question is, Erin, the Canada is a multicultural nation. As I know, Mr. Jason Kenney is endorsing you. As you know, he is always a big multicultural community outreach. And what is your opinion? What is your vision? Are you going to do the same as well?
Yes, and in fact, I'm fortunate to have Jason Kenney's advice and many members of his team that helped build connections and trust with a lot of cultural communities across the entire country. A lot in British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, Montreal. We need to win trust with communities again, because in the last 2 elections, we weren't winning their vote. But the Trudeau government has seen a slowdown of our immigration system. We've seen 60,000 people illegally walk into our country, holding back the list, making families wait longer. We need to make sure small business owners, many of them first or second generation Canadians, Justin Trudeau called them tax cheats a few years ago and has tried to take away their ability to have their family work with their business. So we're going to stand up, we're going to build trust, build relations, and having Jason Kenney's advice will be very helpful. And I think many cultural communities, because of their background, their religious faith, their importance of family and small business, many of them should be Conservatives, so we're going to go out and win their trust.
Very good. So, Mr. Tole, do you think there will be elections in the fall? Do you think? And are you ready for it once you, are you ready to become a leader now?
Great question. I think there's a very good chance of an election in the late fall before all the bills come due from COVID-19, before Parliament has a lot of time to look into the wee scandal that Mr. Trudeau is consumed with right now. 3 Liberal cabinet ministers very close to this charity that should not have been involved in awarding them a contract that had almost $1 billion of taxpayers' money. So we have to have a leader in the House of Commons to fight against the government, hold them to account, to debate. I'm the only candidate that can do that in September and be ready for an election this fall. So we need to be ready. Conservatives need to have a leader who can stand in the House and fight and have an election ready. I'm that leader.
All right. So, Erin, 343 billion of deficit predicted, over 1 trillion of debt. And do you have any plans to get back Canada on track?
Yes, I do. On my website, erinotoole.ca, I have my Rebuilding Canada plan. We're going to get our fiscal house in order over the next number of years. We're going to do it in a way that's fair so that we can provide some help to small businesses and industries really affected. But we really need to make sure, as we're lowering spending, we get the economy working. We need to support the energy industry. We need to support forestry, mining, the steel and aluminum industries, the auto industry. We need as many Canadians as possible working so that they're not on government assistance programs, but they're actually providing for their family and paying taxes. So I have a very, very bold plan to fire up our economy and make Canada the best place to invest, to grow jobs, and to raise your family. And that's in my plan, and we need to do it. With over $1 billion or $1 trillion in debt, Canada's future is at risk if the Trudeau Liberals win again.
And what about how to balance the books? Because Liberals said, don't worry, it will be balanced itself. It will be balanced itself. Well, what does that mean according to you?
Well, Mr. Trudeau has never balanced a budget. In fact, he's never even been close to it. He has run deficits in the range of roughly $20 to $30 billion. He has raised taxes on small businesses, on seniors, on Canadians who buy a bottle of wine. He's raising taxes across the board, and he still can't balance the budget before COVID. Now we see in 5 months, he spent $1/3 of $1 trillion. We need to get that under control. The Conservatives are very strong on the economy, on the budget, and on keeping taxes low. If we don't defeat Trudeau, he is going to raise your taxes. We have a plan to get back to balance without raising taxes.
Very right. Erin, at this point, I have a question for you. Right now, basically, Mr. Trudeau is in Parliament Hill from years. During the pandemic, he is a leader of the country. What do you think? If you will be in the place of Trudeau, or just the Conservative Party will be there with the majority at this time, there will be a
I think we can win a majority.
Or different picture?
I think we can win a majority, and we can make sure Canada is ready in case there's a second wave of COVID-19, which could happen. Conservatives in January started calling for us to stop flights from China, stop coronavirus cases from coming into Canada. That is what we need to do, make sure we protect our citizens and protect our economy. So I have a very detailed plan to do this. And if I win, if I get the votes of Conservative members, number 1 vote, I can win more seats in Ontario much like Premier Doug Ford did, if we win a lot of his seats that he wins provincially for the PCs, we will form the next government. So I think my strength being in the House, being a true blue Conservative, and being from the Toronto area where we need to win seats, all will help us form a majority government.
Very right. So, Erin, what's your plans for environment? Because environment changes are right in front of us. It's around the corner. It's coming close to us every single day.
Yes, I will cut Justin Trudeau's carbon tax because that's not actually helping the environment. It's just taxing families and small business. What we will do is work with the provinces on their plans to reduce emissions and to clean up the overall environment, including our water. We need to make sure we have a real plan that respects the ability for people to work and our economy to be productive, and use technology and use partnering with the provinces and bigger companies to get their emissions down over time without raising taxes. It's not going to be easy, but I do think the Conservatives have a number of good plans. I have my platform that has a lot of detail. The environment is important to me because we want to give our children a clean country with clean air and clean water, and I've got a plan to do that.
Perfect. And which are your three strikes? Three strikes for Liberals.
Well, Justin Trudeau was the first Prime Minister to ever have been found guilty of breaking the ethics laws. He has now done that twice, and this WE scandal is the third investigation launched into the Prime Minister's own personal ethical conduct. In baseball, they say 3 strikes and you're out. The Prime Minister now has 3 ethics investigations, and I think our country needs someone who is ethical, who puts Canada first, and has a plan to get us out of the economic hole caused by COVID. Mr. Trudeau seems to only want to help his friends and Liberal insiders. I want to help Canadian families and small businesses. That's why it's time for change. It's time for a stable, principled Conservative government in Canada.
Perfect. It was great talking to you, Mr. Erin. Mr. Tole, before you leave, I just want to ask you if you want to give any message to the public.
Well, first, I want to thank you for the great opportunity to discuss my leadership race and the country. I want to wish best wishes of health and strength to all your viewers. And any of them that are Conservative Party members, we need to pick a leader who is ready for an election this fall. I am the only one that can win that has a seat in the House of Commons. If they're a Conservative member, they will be getting their ballots in the next week. I need them to put me first so that I can win and put Canada first as Prime Minister.
That is perfect. Well, it was great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. ਦੋਸਤੋ ਹੁਣੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਵਾਈ ਸੀ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਏਰਨ ਮਾਈਕਲ ਓਟੋਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਕ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਸੰਦ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਇਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਹੋਸਟ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।
ਸਾਡਾ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵੇਖਣ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਲਈ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਚੈਨਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਬੈਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਟਨ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ।